For 15 years, they labeled me the family's disappointment until they boarded my private jet. The invitation to the annual Whitaker family reunion rested untouched on the corner of my mahogany breakfast counter, the golden edges catching the soft morning light streaming through the penthouse windows in London. 15 years of being ignored, ridiculed, and underestimated were about to be shattered by a single headline. I glanced at my phone again, reading the alert that sparked everything. Financial Times declared Emily Ross's immersive AI studio had exceeded $4,800,000,000 in valuation just 2 days before the family gathering. Staying anonymous was no longer an option. "My cousin Jake is on the line again." My assistant's voice buzzed through the intercom, breaking my thoughts. Of course, he had been trying to reach me since the article appeared. I inhaled deeply and answered. "Hey, Jake." "Emily, what is going on?" He scrambled. "Bloomberg called me. Bloomberg asked how it feels to be related to a tech billionaire. Is this really happening?" I gazed out over the Thames from my Canary Wharf penthouse. "Guess you'll find out this weekend," I replied. "No way. You can't just spring this on us. We all believed you were struggling," Aunt Linda had said, while Sophie and Uncle Mark looked on. I raised an eyebrow. "Concern does not mean kindness," I said quietly. "All those years of dinner jokes, the time Uncle Mark offered me a temporary role at his law firm, that kind of concern? They were dismissive, and yet I tolerated it." Silence followed. "Jake?" I asked. Emily Ross, a refined barrister and Cambridge law graduate, had already become a managing partner by the age of 29. She was always the pride of the family. Someone finally asked how long Emily had been there as I stepped onto the terrace, with the city's drone far below. I recalled when I first moved into that shabby flat above a bakery in Soho. "Yes, back when you were working on those strange tech art projects." That was 15 years ago. The conversation grew quiet. That was the moment I unveiled my first interactive AI exhibit, which sold for £45,000 sterling at the time. "Seriously," I confirmed. A few months later, another deal brought in £160,000. By the time Aunt Linda was loudly questioning if I would ever find a real job, I had already earned my first million. I pictured Jake recalculating everything he believed he understood. "But did you not ask Grandpa for help with groceries the year you drove that clunky old Volvo?" I responded with a soft laugh. I did not ask for help. I invited him to invest in my platform. He urged me to be realistic about the decision, just as with the penthouse and the jet waiting at Farnborough. "You have a private jet?" His voice faltered. "A Gulfstream G700, I replied calmly. After another pause, he said, "Emily, how wealthy are you?" I smiled, sipping my espresso. "I am rich enough that the next family reunion will be catered by the same team responsible for the Met Gala." He said nothing more, but I could sense it. The sound of 15 years of judgment collapsing under the weight of an undeniable truth. I was never a failure, merely occupied with building everything they claimed was impossible. I heard their disbelief shatter. For years, through Jake's flawlessly polished voice, I had been invisible at the family table, the kind but struggling cousin everyone overlooked. Sophie, the youngest and most outspoken among us, used to slam her credit card down at brunch, making it seem like a show. "It's fine," she would sigh dramatically. "Emily is still finding her way." I let them have their opinions. "Forbes will print £5,900,000,000, I told him. But honestly, the real figure is closer to 8. The sound Jake made was not quite a gasp, yet lacked any dignity. "I have a board call in 5, I continued casually. "See you on the island." Click. I turned toward the intercom. "Emma, is everything ready?" "Yes, Miss Ross," my assistant's voice responded. "Jake is prepared. Bentleys have been sent to pick up each family member. The island is confirmed, NDAs are signed, and Chef Michael with his team is en route. I glanced at the invitation again, still lying on the counter. 15 years of being typecast, the odd one, the disappointment, the person they ignored when they thought I wasn't listening. This time, they would see the real Emily. My phone buzzed. It was Sophie. Omi, is the Forbes thing real? Like absolutely real? Please tell me this is just a PR stunt. I smiled and locked the screen. Funny how the quiet ones always have the last say. Sophie, who once declared that I was wasting my potential while she advanced up the ranks at a global consultancy, I recalled her toast from last year. Some of us just prefer real careers, she had said. The quiet calm buzzed again. Miss Ross, both of your parents are on hold. I didn't hesitate and said, tell them I am in a meeting. Then I glanced at my Cartier Ballon Bleu and told Emma to have the helicopter ready because I am flying to the boardroom today. I grabbed my sunglasses, my iPad, and the sketch pad for our upcoming product pitch. As I slipped on my blazer, my thoughts wandered back to 15 years earlier on the night I gave up trying to be understood. AI visuals are not real art, Dad had dismissed. It is just a fad, and this blockchain art nonsense is ridiculous. You are being tricked. I was 23, fresh out of Oxford, sitting at the mahogany dining table in our family's townhouse in Brighton, attempting to explain my thesis and myself. They had not financed my education for this. They expected law school, a stable job, and a respectable life. I started to speak about just selling my first collection, but Dad cut me off, waving his hand. We have talked about this. You either apply to Chambers this spring or figure things out without any support or second chances. Mom gave her gentle yet condescending smile, saying, Darling, we just want what is best for you. You need stability and direction. I looked across the table at Dad's disapproval, Mom's tender disappointment, Jake's judgment, and Sophie's barely hidden amusement. That was the moment I realized. I did not mention I had earned £38,000 sterling from my beta NFT showcase, that 2 investors from Berlin had flown over to meet me, or that I had already registered my first company. You were right, I murmured softly. I will do it my own way. 2 weeks later, I moved into a 1-bedroom flat above a record store. In times of hardship, they assumed I was barely getting by, and I allowed them to believe it. The first year was incredibly tough. I slept in shifts, wrote code, fine-tuned algorithms, and pitched ideas relentlessly. My initial digital exhibition, Code and Color, sold out within 4 hours, generating profits of £940,000 sterling. I did not spend that money. Instead, I reinvested it to build platforms, hire tech teams, and create a fresh framework for digital art ownership. Every time I returned home, I wore the same trench coat and well-worn shoes, gave the familiar quiet nod. My mother always asked, "Do you need anything?" I would simply answer, "Thanks, but I am managing just fine." And by the end of that first year, I was more than fine. My net worth had exceeded £8 million sterling. By the third year, I had quietly surpassed £90 million sterling. Yet to my family, I was still Emily Ross, the hopeful girl who had supposedly wasted her Oxford education. Now, 15 years later, stepping into my private helicopter atop my Canary Wharf residence, I reflected on how a single small deception had evolved into a multi-billion-pound secret. In 2 days, this secret would be exposed in the headlines. My phone buzzed once more with a message from Dad. "We need to talk." I smiled and switched off the phone. He could wait. After years of condescending remarks and fake concern, they were about to meet the woman they never expected, and I would ensure they would never forget her. Exactly at 11 o'clock in the morning, Greenwich Mean Time, the Financial Times article went live. I was already sitting in my sleek home office, holding an espresso in my hand. Panoramic windows revealed the London cityscape while a wall of monitors flashed with breaking news. Emily Ross discreetly built an empire valued at £8,300,000,000. Below the headline, there was a picture of me approvingly taken at the unveiling of our AI-curated art platform, dressed in a tailored Stella McCartney outfit, worth more than Sophie's yearly income. The article not only revealed my fortune, but also detailed the network I had quietly established. Immersive art spaces, blockchain-verified auctions, global partnerships, and numerous equity agreements spanning Europe and Asia. My phone began buzzing nonstop. Sophie, are you serious? £8.3 billion, Jake? I sensed something was off. I probably should have asked more questions then. Mom, Emily dear, please call us when you have a moment. Dad, this cannot be right. Aunt Linda, wait, is this really our Emily? I silenced the group chat and opened my email inbox. It was a frenzy. Invitations to speak, venture capital proposals, art collectors clamoring for shares flooded in. Yet, one message caught my attention. Charles Whitmore, my father's oldest business associate, wrote, Emily, I have been following your achievements closely. I feel there is genuine potential for collaboration between Ross Technologies and Whitmore and Lang. I realize your father may not have seen this possibility before, but we are eager to reconnect. Warm regards, Charles. I actually chuckled. 4 years earlier, I had proposed a joint project to Charles. He looked me straight in the eye and said, This is not exactly what we need, Emily. We do not deal in imaginary technology. The intercom buzzed, and Miss Rowe said, Your mother is downstairs. She is quite persistent. I tapped the security panel, and there she stood, Vivian Rowan Pearls dressed in pressed linen, pacing the lobby with that same commanding presence she showed at charity events. Let her in, I instructed, folding my arms. Moments later, the elevator doors opened, revealing her flustered gaze as she took in the penthouse, as if trying to accept the marble floors, the Damien Hirst artwork on the wall, the view of the city skyline. Emily, her voice was barely audible. What is all this? I handed her a steaming espresso. This is my true home, Mom, not the rental in Islington you believed I was barely managing. She took a hesitant step inside, her eyes catching the custom art and automated glass panels. But how? When? How long have you stayed here? 15 years, I responded, leaning against the kitchen island. Since the night you told me no one invests in computer art? She looked puzzled, then pale. We thought you needed help. You asked your father for money? No, I corrected her kindly. I asked him to invest. He said it was useless, and the flat, the old Volvo, all part of a facade, I explained calmly. The version of me you were comfortable knowing, the struggling dreamer. The disappointment washed over her, and she sank into a leather armchair, shaken. You deceived us. No, I said. I just allowed you to hold on to what you already believed. And in that quiet moment, for the first time in her life, I saw clearly that my mother was no longer the one steering the story I told her. Does anyone else know? She asked quietly, barely above a whisper. Only Jake, I replied. He discovered it when the article was published. I believe he tried to warn you. She nodded slowly. He called your father, who dismissed it, saying it must be a mistake or some other Emily Ross. I walked over to my desk and retrieved a slim black folder with my logo embossed in silver on the front. This is the proposal I submitted to Dad 4 years ago, I said, handing it to her. I requested an investment of £750,000. If he had agreed, his share would be worth over £90 million now. Her hands trembled slightly while holding the folder. She murmured, He said you were seeking a bailout, that the project was already doomed, and you believed him. She did not respond. Did either of you ever attend any of my exhibitions? Google my name, watch any single interview, I challenged in silence. I turned back to the glass, watching the Thames curve and glisten under the slowly ascending sun. The family gathering was still underway, but the venue had changed. I have reserved the entire place we normally use. It was never private enough. Everyone will arrive in Bentleys, fly on my private jet, and we will celebrate on my Caribbean island. Your island? She repeated in surprise. In St. Kitts. I purchased it last year after finalizing my first deal worth £1 billion. I finally faced her fully, my mother. This time, I refused to be the silent one sitting at the table while everyone boasted about law firms and vacation homes. In Provence, I have accomplishments to share as well, she said, standing unsteadily while adjusting her pearl bracelet and smoothing the front of her silk skirt. Your father, when he sees everything, will not be able to deny that his daughter has built something far greater than any family legacy. I smiled and said, Mom, this is only the start. I walked her to the elevator, and as we waited, I added, Oh, and remember the Bentley you always dreamed of, the one Dad called impractical. She looked at me, puzzled. I bought both last month, I said with a shrug, in different colors just because I wanted to. The door slid shut on her stunned face. As soon as they closed, I pressed the intercom. Is everything ready for the reunion, Emma? Yes, Miss Ross. The island staff have been fully briefed. Every guest will receive a tailored folder outlining the investments they passed on before, along with updated valuations. The documentary timeline of your accomplishments is complete and queued for the welcome dinner. Perfect. I grabbed my phone, opened the family group chat, and typed a brief message, looking forward to seeing everyone at the reunion. Dress suitably for a private island. Transportation will be arranged. Then I refreshed the stock dashboard on my laptop. My company's valuation had jumped again. Another £800 million added overnight. Another billion before breakfast. I imagined my father sitting in his corner office, probably gripping the morning newspaper, trying to understand how the daughter he had dismissed had become one of the most influential women in Europe. I thought about Sophie still flaunting her executive lifestyle, completely unaware that I could buy everything she owned with just this week's passive earnings. This reunion was destined to be unforgettable. My phone buzzed again, with a message from Dad saying, "We need to talk before the reunion. Some matters are better shared in private." I stared at it for a moment, then replied, "We had 15 years to talk, Dad. You chose silence now. You can listen." And I pressed send. Everything will be unveiled at the reunion. Dad, isn't that the point of reunions? To share our triumphs, I finished the message, then hit the intercom and said, "Now one more thing, yes. Bro, have the design team repaint the helipad. I want my name visible from the sky so nobody can mistake whose island they're landing on." It's already done, she confirmed, and the video displays are set for the arrival. Perfect. Anything else? There was a pause. I recalled 15 years of being underestimated and cast as the odd disappointment. Yes, I said, have the Financial Times article framed. I want it in every villa, every corridor, every suite on the island. I want it to be the first thing they notice, no matter where they go. As I ended the call, I caught my reflection in the floor-to-ceiling glass poised, powerful, valuable. Countless moments had led to this point, and at last it was time to change the story. The morning of the Ross family reunion arrived crystal clear and radiant. I stood on my private airstrip just outside London, watching 3 black Bentleys pull up, their headlights sparkling as they arrived within minutes of each other. They came first. Out stepped my father, as stoic as always, though his gait now carried a softer tone. My mother followed, graceful yet restrained, her sharp gaze mellowed by our recent conversation. Then arrived Jake, Sophie, and the wider circle of cousins, uncles, and longtime family friends, all blinking in the bright morning sun, bewildered by the jet gleaming on the runway's center. There it waited, immaculate and dazzling white, my Gulfstream G800. Along its side, in shimmering platinum, was the inscription, "Welcome everyone." I called out with steady yet authoritative tones, "I trust the journey was comfortable, Emily." My father stepped forward, attempting what he hoped seemed composed, but uncertainly said, "This is over the top. The Sussex estate would have done." I smiled, lowering my sunglasses. "Too visible, Dad." This reunion demanded a different setting, which is why we are gathering on my private island. "Your what?" Sophie exclaimed, clutching her Dior purse as if it could save her. "Of course you own an island." As they entered the jet, I witnessed their reactions shift from doubt to wonder. Crystal chandeliers, rare art pieces, trays with vintage Krug shimmering gold. Aunt Linda squinted. "Is that really a Hawkshney?" "It is," I said casually. "I grabbed it last year at Sabe's." Dad cleared his throat. "Camellia, maybe we should have a conversation." "We will when we land," I answered, lifting my glass. "Meanwhile, enjoy the champagne. It costs more than your whole quarterly revenue, Jake." He blinked in disbelief. Exactly 2 hours later, we began our descent toward Paradise, my private island of 300 acres off Antigua's coast, teeming with palm trees and sleek architecture. The main estate sat proudly at the hill's summit, and there it was, just as I had arranged, Emily Ross, spelled out boldly in white across the helipad, with letters so immense they were visible from 30,000 feet. "Is that Sophie?" he stammered. "Is that your name?" As we landed, LED panels circled the pad, coming to life. They showcased a rotating gallery of my most celebrated digital collections: Fractal Eden, Code, and Grace, Signal Bloom. Each display revealed final sale amounts: £1 billion, £90 million, £5 million, £60 million. "Welcome to Ross Island," I said as the door slid open, revealing my small part of the world. Little Jake murmured while gazing up at the futuristic retreat set among the cliffs. It was part sanctuary, part bold statement. "Your villas are ready," I added. "Each room contains reading material customized just for you. For Dad, a thorough report on every rejected investment proposal marked up with current evaluations and market standing. For Sophie, a simple graph comparing her yearly earnings against what I earn through compound interest every 48 hours. And for Jake, an analysis of the top 3 largest. His firm lost the contracts to mine, along with the estimated 5-year opportunity cost. This was not about revenge, but about clarity, and they were about to receive far more than they ever anticipated. I allowed them an hour to get comfortable, then called them to the main dining room, an expansive glass enclosure overlooking the Caribbean coast, with waves striking the shore like a clock's steady beat, marking the moment they would always remember. The table was arranged for 20, adorned with gleaming Italian crystal, platinum-edged bone china, and silverware worth more than most of their homes. Behind them, illuminated and impossible to ignore, was the cover of the Financial Times, featuring the headline, "Digital Visionary: How Emily Ross Quietly Built an £8 billion, £300 million sterling empire." They arrived slowly, eyes wide and bodies stiff. Their confidence had faded somewhere between the helipad and the corridors lined with hawk chandeliers. Even their luxury clothing seemed like an attempt to compensate. I said calmly and warmly, gesturing toward the table, "Here we are. Make yourselves at home. We have much to discuss." My father spoke first, his tone intentionally steady. I believe I speak for all of us when I say we are surprised. Surprised, I repeated with a smile. Not upset that I withheld the truth. Not angry that I concealed information. Simply surprised that we did not know. My mother whispered, "No." I responded softly but clearly, "You simply did not want to know." Every time I attempted to discuss my work, but you shifted the topic each time. Whenever I invited you to participate, you brushed me off. Sophie's voice was faint, yet the flat in Islington, the used car, the occasions I brought lunch because you assumed I was struggling, all came to mind. I finished speaking, and her cheeks flushed a deep red. At least she showed some shame. "Did you like it?" I inquired, feeling like the one holding the real job, the rescuer. She remained silent. "Let me show you something," I said as I moved to the head of the table. I pressed a discreet button under the edge of the polished wood surface. Above us, sleek motorized panels softly whirred open. High-resolution screens gracefully descended like theater curtains. The lights dimmed, unveiling a timeline that matched key achievements in my career with direct quotes from my family. In 2010, my father called this tech art phase a fad, but my first exhibition sold out within 72 hours, earning £42,000. In 2012, my mother advised, "You need to think about something stable." Yet my startup closed its seed, round valuing at £4,500,000. By 2015, Uncle Mark said, "Emily, not everyone is meant to be a CEO." But we secured Series B funding and signed a partnership with IBM in Europe. In 2018, Aunt Linda dismissed crypto art as a gimmick, but my platform surpassed 800,000 users and generated £320 million in annual sales. By 2021, Charles Whitmore, my father's partner, claimed, "We don't invest in virtual fads." Yet I achieved a strategic exit valued at £2,100,000,000. I faced the table again. Each one of those moments reflected in the silence around me. I remembered their words and carried them with me through every late night, every deal, every bold step forward. My father's voice cracked with emotion as he said, "Why didn't you tell us sooner?" I answered softly, "Because you were not listening. I needed to prove to you that success does not always wear a uniform, and sometimes the girl you assume is just wasting time is actually leading the way." I moved closer to the expansive window, the ocean below shimmering like a polished mirror. The hardest part was not hiding what I was doing, but watching you all cheer for one another while pretending not to see my progress. Jake muttered under his breath, "Is this what success looks like to you?" I replied calmly, "You chose comfort. That was your finish line, but mine was set much higher." I turned to Sophie. "You flaunt your 6-figure salary like a trophy. Well, I earned that between meetings last week." Suddenly, Uncle Mark stood up sharply and said, "Enough! We get it. You've made your point." I stayed composed. "I'm not seeking apologies. I'm offering you understanding." I pressed another button, and the monitors changed once again, now displaying a sleek, cutting-edge prototype rotating in holographic space. My next project launching next month. It's a revolution in ownership and creation expected to be worth over £10 billion within 18 months. They stared, wide-eyed, and I raised my glass. This marks the start of the next chapter. This time, you will witness it with your own eyes. No more doubting. The room grew quiet, swallowed by the heavy silence that follows such declaration. The shattering of long-held illusions settled quietly over my family as they faced a truth they had avoided for 15 years. At last, my mother found her voice. "We are proud of you, Emily," she whispered gently. "We should have felt proud all this time." I nodded and returned her warmth with a soft smile. "Thank you, Mom. But this was never about pride. I created this because it was my vision, my truth." My eyes wandered across the room. They could no longer ignore the digital displays shimmering across the walls, the sweeping ocean views, the servers humming softly beneath us that fueled an empire. And now, this is my world. "So, what comes next?" Jake asked, his voice careful but honest. "Next," I repeated, pouring a glass of vintage Bordeaux. "Next, we share dinner as a family, but this time it will happen on my conditions. No pretenses, no assigned parts." I raised my glass to the long-awaited truth. One by one, they lifted their glasses too, their doubt melting away, replaced by something I had not seen from them in years: genuine focus. The evening unfolded, enveloped in soft light and even warmer culinary delights, Michelin quality courses paired with rare wine, conversations that started with caution but gradually softened. For the first time in over 10 years, I was no longer the odd one out. I was the person they were starting to understand. When they finally retired to their suites facing the ocean, I lingered barefoot on the terrace, mesmerized by the moonlight dancing on the Caribbean waves. Sophie approached quietly beside me. "Was it worth it?" she asked. I reflected on years of being overlooked, on leaving rooms with my head held high and heart heavy. "Yes," I replied, but not for what I once believed. I had come to understand it was no longer about proving others mistaken. It was about embracing freedom, being true to myself. I smiled quietly to myself. Tomorrow, they will witness what comes next, because their world of cautious professions, calculated safety, and silent compliance is concluding, while the one I created of immersive imagination, worldwide fairness, and daring transformation is only beginning. Later that evening, I discovered something slipped under my door, a folded note written in my father's handwriting. "I was mistaken, not just about your business, but about everything. You did not merely succeed. You changed the rules. I regret not seeing it earlier. Dad." I read the message twice before placing it gently beside the framed receipt for my first digital sale, £38,000. For a sculpture, no gallery would accept a symbol of where it all started. The following morning, the family gathered for breakfast, their postures relaxed, their words softer, and their eyes more curious. The previous tension replaced by something different: acknowledgement, respect, and then I realized something profound. Success is not about disproving others, but about affirming yourself. And sometimes, the most significant triumphs are quiet, like a skyline shaped by your own hands, like a future you crafted while everyone else looked away. My phone vibrated, interrupting the moment Row Interactive announced its revolutionary platform, transforming art ownership. I gazed outward at the ocean, the island, the legacy. Everything I quietly crafted now faces the future. This moment is different because they are watching no longer. No more hiding, no more pretending, only honesty on my conditions. If you know my journey, I want to hear about yours. Leave a comment and tell me, what would you do if the closest people in your life doubted your dream? Would you walk away or silently create something impossible to ignore? Your voice is important. Your dream is important. Share this video if you believe in fresh starts, in quiet strength, in building when no one is watching. And remember to subscribe, because this story is not just mine. It belongs to every person who has been underestimated, dismissed, or told to shrink. Keep pushing forward, let them doubt, and let your achievements speak for themselves. You owe no one an explanation, but one day you must celebrate your success out loud. Success is not about being the loudest. It is about being impossible to deny. Now tell me in the comments what dream you refuse to give up on.